Welcome to the video everyone. This is where I polypaint this sexy looking dude in ZBrush. I will be going through the process of polypainting over layers, which will show you how you can have control of your workflow for the best outcome. But before starting, if you haven't watched the previous video where I give birth to him, where I sculpt him in ZBrush, then go watch the video first by clicking on this pop-up at the top corner. I'm sure you'll love it. And if you have already watched it, then stay with me as I proceed. So I start off by applying a base color on the surface, and it really doesn't matter what type of skin color you pick as long as it's true to its complexion. Because moving forward, there will be a tons of layer covering the base color, so eventually it goes hiding in the deepest. So the first thing I want to mention is that always apply skin shader material or any of the material in which you want the final model to be, so that it doesn't cause any problem ahead. I realized it soon enough and changed it immediately, so don't be like me, be wise. Another important thing is to make sure your lighting is good enough for you to be able to see the colors that you intend to apply. I'm not really a fan of bright lights in my scene, so I switched it down a little. As the base layer is applied, I tend to apply another layer of base, but only specific to areas like cheeks, nose, forehead, chin and all. The color zones of our face are considered to be divided into three parts, such as forehead is yellow, nose and cheeks are kinda reddish, and the rest of the mouth and chin is green or grey or something in the middle. But have it subtle. Notice that I mostly have the intensity below 50, which doesn't kill the color underneath it. Just like any other part of the skin, the lips also has bunch of different variations of colors on them, and not just pink or red or whatever, unless you have lipstick on. So once you are happy with the color from the multiple base layers, use an alpha to apply variations on them. Right now I'm happy with them, but we'll revisit this later. A very commonly used material for eyes is toy plastic. I use it as a placeholder in the beginning, but eventually apply texture and paint them. So I have the skeleton by the great Rafa Grassetti, whom I of course idolize, and use its teeth to place into the sexy guy's mouth. I was feeling very lazy to sculpt those teeth, so I went for the easy route. So back to the skin, it's time to start applying some details. As always, I start with my favorite part, the nose. I picked a darker tone and with lower intensity began to drag the alphas onto the surface. You can always mix variety of colors that goes with the complexion of the skin. Always make sure to have layers enabled, or else it will be harder to lower the intensity later if you will wish to do. I then go on to accentuate the darker areas such as the under eyes to give him some dark circles, which we all have to some extent, but thankfully not as him. Just as the nose, the entire face also has some spots and pigmentations. Some people have a lot and some have very minimal. A guy couldn't afford expensive skin treatment, so his skin is shitty. This entire process pretty much goes back and forth until you get the desired look you are going for. I always come later to apply a tone of specific color to bring the natural feel to it. The white color on the body was bothering my eyes, so I applied some color onto it. Now it's better. Having the spots of multiple colors give the feeling of either pigmentations or blood vessels under the skin. It is important to have patience, guys. This is a game of patience. It takes time, but trust me, it's worth it. As I mentioned earlier, to work in layers, it's because of this. It gives you the control to apply colors and later decide how much of it is that you want. Began to apply an orange kind of burnt skin tone, which you will see in a lot of old age people. Always use references while working, because not everyone has the same characteristics, and these skin tones varies with their individual complexions. You can see how the spots from the previous layers are blending in and have not entirely disappeared. From time to time, I always go and check a render to see how it's coming along with the lights and shadows. Sometimes I take the best renders and sometimes it's just the PBR renders, but either gives a good sense of how it's coming along. After playing with the intensity of the orange tint, I began to add more beauty to his skin with more spots. Then I realized it lacked a little bit of maroon, so I added that and back to adding the spots again. You can always also use the flat color to see the look of the entire thing without the details of the sculpt and have a better understanding towards what is needed. It can be helpful sometimes to see the paint without the distraction of shadows. One of my favorite features while polypainting is using the cavity mask. With the use of cavity mask, you can paint only on the crevices with darker values, which not only gives a sense of depth but also brings realism to the skin texture. I usually paint with the darker color and later lower the intensity layer as per the need. I wanted to add more red to his cheeks, so I hid all the layers and painted only the red so that it doesn't affect all the previous colors and lays right on top of them. But that was not enough because I did like too much red, so eventually I had to lower its intensity to have the balance. But just because the color is so bright, I have to do the spots brighter too. The previous red spots almost blended all together with this one. But like I said earlier, it's a process of going back and forth. You'll lose some, you'll get some. Patience guys, patience. As I mentioned earlier about the 3 zones on our faces, that's why I had a brown kind of shade for the spots on the forehead and not the red like I did on the cheeks and nose. You can always keep playing around with the layers to see what's working better for you. No doubt it's a long process with lots of trial and error. Don't forget about the ears though, they are there. Ah, that's one sexy looking fella. Oh, I mean, nice render. So after seeing those renders, he seemed to be very healthy to me. So I start giving him some serious dark circles. For such darker areas, I don't usually go with the complete black, no matter how dark they are, cause that way it won't look very natural and organic. The purple I'm using defines how skin turns when it gets darker, when you get hit by something hard or if someone bites you. I've experienced both of it firsthand, so I can assure. I like to do the same to the areas with heavy folds and wrinkles cause they get darker as the person gets old and doesn't take care of the skin. But this is the fun with the creatures like these. You get to do all of these fun stuff with the sculpt and with the textures, where the outcome lies somewhere between regular and unusual. So finally, after feeling content with the head, we move to the body. The body follows the same process as the head. I will start creating uneven skin patches of variety of colors and then cover it with multiple layers of subtle skin tones. I repeat this process twice to get a good blend of uneven pigmented skin. Once that's done looking good, it's time to darken some areas. This time with a little maroon and of course less intensity. At this point, his body didn't seem to be complementing his face, so I started giving him some rashes. How he got them though? Please don't ask me. It felt like it lacked some blending, so I began to add some color to his base skin with a little yellow, and after lowering the intensity, it looked way better. And a little bit more of the rashes because it's never just enough. So you cannot just forget the part that makes him so irresistible, right? It's time to pop some paints now. I know you'd say the fingers are not done right, but they are not visible in my final renders, so I don't bother with them. So I did some final touches as the last layer of marks and spots which enhanced the beauty of his awesome skin, and then ran some renders. I took the best render as my main render and a bunch of other PBR renders with different materials to finally add them together in Photoshop. It was my first time making such composition in Photoshop, which took a lot of trial and error, so unfortunately I didn't record it. I'm sorry guys. But this is how it looks in Photoshop. Each of the materials I used in ZBrush came to use as multiple maps such as specular, ambient occlusion, depth cavity and whatnot. Let me know in the comments if you guys want a separate video on the Photoshop composition, and also let me know any other advice, suggestions or criticism that could help me get better at my work. It will really be helpful. After all, we are all in this together. So let's make great art together, and thank you for watching. I'll meet you again in the next one.